episode of the C-Suite Edge. I'm your host, John Light. I'm also the CEO and founder of Sabretooth Recruiting. And I've been on a tear lately talking to some guests who have not only experience in recruitment, but experience in the talent market as a whole. So I'm excited in that context to welcome Robert Hatta of 10X Consulting to the show. Robert, thanks so much for joining me.
Thanks, John. Appreciate you inviting me to be here.
Well, look, I mean, you and I were talking some pre-show, and you've got a really neat background. I mean, 9 years in a VC firm, on top of a host of other experience, and now I know you've hung up your own shingle and are doing some different things. I'd love if you could maybe share a little bit about your experience and your journey to get to where you are today as we get started.
Sure. I actually have a pretty unorthodox path toward the talent space. The first chapter of my career was spent primarily in product management roles at tech companies. And I'd say the common theme there for me, or at least the thing I most enjoyed about the work, was the product management at tech companies sort of sits in the middle like a quarterback. And the quarterback has to understand what each of the positions on the field do and how it all works together to move the ball down the field. And in a tech company, you're working with, in a product management role, you're working with engineers, designers, sales, marketing, legal, finance, and what legal cares about and what design care about are very different things, but you
Different
got to get
things,
them
yeah.
all in the same direction to launch that product and do it quickly. So I really enjoyed just the puzzle of understanding what each of those functions do, how it all fits together, what the people in those functions care about, and really driving the whole group together. And what it ended up giving me in return was this very clear understanding of the anatomy of a team inside of a tech business. And as I transitioned into what I've been doing for the last 15 years, I've been working with founders of rapidly growing companies, almost always tech companies, who are building companies for the first time. And they don't really need my help understanding technology or how to
Right.
build products, but how to build the company, the vessel of that product, the people that come together and do the different functions. In many cases, that's brand new. In a lot of cases, the founders I've worked with, this is the first time they've ever hired another person, singular, in their lives. So, and the perspective that I'm coming from on the investor side is, so I've worked within VC funds in a role called the talent partner, where the VC fund invests tens of millions of dollars into these companies based on pure potential versus what they've already built. And then the job with that capital is to build a scalable company. Again, these are founders who've never done any of that before. My background and experience on understanding the anatomy of the team they need to build, who does what, how it all fits together, what good looks like, is the basis of how I helped companies and founders. The best practices, the advice, and in many cases, the tools and infrastructure around people operations, recruiting, putting together a leadership team or a board, the things you need when you're 100 or hundreds or even thousands of employees that you didn't need when you were 10 or 20. That's what I would help these founders do from that talent partner position.
It's interesting, and use one of my favorite phrases. I would be shocked if there is a day in my life in the past 15, 20 years I haven't used the term, what does good look like? Or talk about what good looks like. Because a lot of people don't get a solid sight picture on who they need to hire. What does that candidate profile or talent profile look like? And in today's market, it's even harder with all the signal noise. And I mean, if you're a founder or if you're a larger, more existing company that needs to pivot because of all the technology that's promulgating out in the marketplace, it is almost that structure, how you do it, how you make that pivot successfully, both from a strategic and tactical level, especially putting the right people in place. Man, that's a load for a lot of people. And so that leads me to this question. Robert, when you look at in the context of what you do and who you do it for, what do you think is the biggest problem you solve for people?
Yeah, so I think you touched on it. It's really showing them what it looks like. So in the venture capital fund context that I worked previously, a lot of the value so not just me, but the collective partnership would bring to that founder is
Mm-hmm.
we've seen this movie before. We've helped build these companies before. We've got great networks of senior operators and executives and potential board members that we've had relationships with that we can introduce you to. So if you're looking to hire that first head of finance or up level that head of sales, or start to think about who you'd want as an independent board member, we can put actual humans in front of you that have done those roles. So you get to
Mm-hmm.
see it in the flesh. And sometimes you might even get to hire that person, which is sort of a bonus outcome. But minimally, as you go into the world and start to consider who you would hire for the role at your company, you've now seen that person. You have a benchmark. You know what good looks like. So
Mm-hmm.
that's the first thing, or was a common tool in my toolkit that I would share with founders is that network, is that understanding of the role. As I work with clients now independently, it really starts with understanding who they want to be inside of 12 or 18 months, what that really looks like in terms of growth goals, or added capabilities or new functions to the business, and really show them what that requires, in terms of the people they'll need, both quantity and function,
Mm-hmm.
and showing them, again, from my network, actual people who've done those things so that they understand this is what this person looks like. These are the things they would have done previously. Frankly, this is what they cost in the marketplace. I mean, that's a
Mm-hmm.
very important expectation to set. I know you want to do all these great things and you're going to need these capabilities, and you're nodding your head saying, yeah, 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 I want that. Well, it has a price, and you need
Right.
to be comfortable with that too. And I'm sure as a recruiter, that's a common collaborate not calibration that you have to
Yeah,
establish up
calibration's a
front
great
with
word
clients.
for it.
Yeah,
Because a lot of clients, like and you see what they think they want versus what the market says it costs, are often disconnected.
right. So it is a very much an education process up front.
Mm-hmm.
Here's what you want. Yes. Here's who you want to become. Yes. Now this is what it requires. And really get to ground truth on understanding, like, this doesn't happen on its own. It takes intentional strategy. You need to provide the things and the environments that attract those types of folks and those types of talents and capabilities. And then there's best practice on how to get there. But
Mm-hmm.
that's mechanics and best practice. So it's not really invention. But most of, like, the problem that I run into and most help solve is really getting a clearer, higher resolution picture of what that future state looks like for your business, what it requires, and then how different that is from where you are currently, and what
Mm-hmm.
those gaps are that'll need to be addressed.
It's funny to me. I guess it's funny to me in terms of, sometimes I see it as, I don't know if pathetic's the right word, but something I'm very sympathetic to. You think about it, it's like managing any project. Here's our current state. Here's where we want to be future state. Let's reverse engineer what it takes to get there.
It's surprisingly simple. Yes. It's
Well,
not
we say
complicated.
we say it's simple. We see it, and I'm sure anyone who's a PMP sees it. For example, or people who've done system implementations, or like you manage products or built them out. The challenge is transferring that perspective and applying it in a way that actually gets the job done. It's kind of like the difference between creative ideation and actual innovation, where you bring that idea to life. And that's not a skill that everyone possesses. So I'm curious, when you're looking at these companies and you're saying, okay, somebody says 12 months from now, 18 months from now, we want to be here, wherever here is. But today we're in this other place. How critical is it? And I think this is something that needs to be addressed. How critical is it to get the lockdown talent to get there? From the perspective of, it's very hard to get people to execute relative to wearing different hats in context. So, for example, you as a product manager, you would deal with the engineering side of things, your DevOps. You would deal with sales and marketing, which are related but distinct. You would deal with your finance organization. You would deal, and we can go supply chain if necessary, all these other different things. You got to get everybody pulling the wagon in the same direction. How do you counsel companies in terms of getting the right talent with the right alignment? And the reason I put it that way is, in my mind, there has to be a strategic plan to do that. You have to, okay, we're ultra focused on what's coming rather than where we are. We understand this, we live it every day. That entails some hard decisions. It entails some investment and it entails some effort. How do you help companies navigate that kind of death valley? Because, common wisdom is the talent that got you from 0 to 1 isn't going to get you from 1 to 10 or up to 100 or whatever it might be.
Yeah, that's a good question and well framed one. I mean, the lucky thing for me is that when I'm working with a client, it's not because they're so forward thinking and strategic already that they're two steps ahead of where they want to be or where they currently are. And they're bringing me on as this sort of insightful guru to help them get there. That's not what happens. The more realistic scenario is they've tried and failed.
Mm-hmm.
Their business is growing so fast or changing so quickly that they just can't keep up and create a plan, let alone execute. They've tried and failed to put new people in to the business without that holistic strategy, and those people have churned or failed or left in some way. And they've realized it's not just about just blank recruiting or butts and seats or whatever you want to
Right.
call it. It's about being thoughtful and intentional, because where we're going is somewhere we've never been before, and we're going there faster than is natural in many cases. So we need, and our attempts, our own internal attempts to keep up with that have failed. So when you've tried something and failed, you start to ask for help, you're a little more inclined to listen and pay attention and implement and be thoughtful. So the sort of benefit of however I get called into these situations, whether it's through referral or relationship or whatever, it's usually because they've tried something and it hasn't worked. And it's not about just help us execute what we already know we want to do. It's about help us figure out the strategy. Let's put a plan in place. Let's figure out if there are foundational elements. Like if we want to hire a group of engineers, like do we even have the environment or the tools, or have we set aside the necessary investment required for software and for other things that cost real money? Like, do we have all the pieces in place? Like that's what I help clients do, is that be intent. And it's not sit around forever and
Right.
ponder. It's like, we know what we're trying to accomplish. I've seen these situations again and again and again throughout my career. I know and I honor how my clients got here. And it's not like, oh, you guys, you didn't think about this and
Right.
you're stupid and you haven't done it. It's like, no, you were moving fast. You were doing the best you can. In fact, you're doing great, which is why you're even here, is because the future is way bigger than the present. You're doing something right. And it's natural to have the infrastructure you built to get here start to crumble as you grow, or the people that were critical in getting you here need to up level or grow to get to there. So it's like, I understand and empathize with both where they're going, where they've come from, and from that position can sit with them and quickly come up with a plan. And that's really it. And sometimes that plan leads to thoughtful recruiting, and sometimes it means coaching and working with the team they have that's got the potential to up level. So it comes in a lot of different forms, but it has to start with a plan.
Let me ask you this question. And this might actually be the most difficult question in the conversation. How do you get a business owner, a founder, C suite executive, whoever it might be, to trust that plan? Because in my experience, execution a lot of times comes down to trust, i.e., we believe in this plan and we're going whole hog. And I've seen a lot of cases where you hear that, but then people don't copper their bets. They don't put their money where their mouth is, or their time where their mouth is, or whatever it might be. So how do you, from the outside looking in, get that founder, get that leader, get that organization to have enough trust to execute thoroughly? Because if they don't execute thoroughly, the plan doesn't matter. They'll never achieve it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'll tell you my process. I don't claim this to be universal truth. And this is a process born out of doing this for a really long time and not doing it well. So hard one. I've worked with founders for the last 15, 17 years of my career, and entrepreneurs. These are people who cut against the grain, who plunge forward when everybody else says it's not going to work, and highly unique personalities, to be sure, as you're familiar, and as you probably are
No
yourself.
experience with that.
um,
No.
so I have a lot of reps working with founders, and what it starts with, one is am I listening, and am I understanding where they are? I mean, I talked about it a little bit. Like, if I understand and listen to them, and play back that I understand, this is what you're trying to accomplish. This is who you are as a business. These are your goals and objectives. I get those. I'm listening. I can hear what you're saying, and I understand it. Like, I've been there before. I've seen companies go there before. The second part is, I really know where you've come from. I'm listening. I understand, and I think most importantly, I'm honoring it. Like that. Like that is no business owner or leader has it all figured out and is
Hmm.
doing things perfectly. And when you add to that, they're growing super fast, or they're inventing it along the way, or they're building the plane as it flies. Like, they know there's a ton of stuff that isn't working out. And just to hear from me, as someone who's worked with hundreds of founders in these situations,
Hmm.
who've moved on to the next level in most cases, it's like, that's natural. It's supposed to be chaotic. It's not supposed to be perfect. Like, the trade-offs, the mistakes, like, all of those things are absolute. Those are features, not bugs. Like, that you got here and it was messy, and that you feel like every day your business is about to unravel beneath you, doesn't make you a unique failure or incompetent. In fact, that's part of the process of getting to where you've gotten the business, and the speed at which you got it. So it's like, I get it, I understand it, I've seen it a bunch of times, and you're doing awesome. Like, these are situations and mistakes and chaos, born out of growth, not failure.
Hmm.
And so I think just establishing that very clear understanding and empathy and honor for what they've been through and where they're trying to go, because I've seen it a bunch of times, and playing back to them in a way that they understand it. Now we can start to work together on whatever that plan is, and it's your plan. I'm just the guide. I make recommendations, not decisions, and be very clear. This is your business to run. These are your
Hmm.
choices to make. These are your mistakes to make, and I'll be here with you throughout that. I don't know, that's become my process, and I think that works in a lot of facets of life, as I've learned, again, mostly the hard way. But just listening, understanding, playing back that you're understanding, and then being that sort of, I can help as a guide, but you're the one doing the really hard work.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's fantastic. Robert, let me ask you this, 'cause I think it's important. If someone wants to dive deeper with you, maybe talk strategy or tactics, but if they just want to get to know you and go deeper, what's the best way for them to get in touch?
Yeah, the best way is my website. It's 10xtalent.com. That's 10-xtalent.com. There's a form you can fill out to send me a note. But it basically lays out who I am and how I work, and it's the front door to getting in touch with me.
Sounds great. Robert, 10-xtalent.com. Just to reiterate, Robert Hatta, thanks so much for joining me today, man. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, John. This is fun.